Have you ever felt something break inside you without anyone noticing? It wasn't a blow. It wasn't a visible wound. It was a disappointment. Silent, slow, unexpected. And it came from someone you never imagined could fail you. Maybe it was a partner, maybe a friend, a family member, a business partner, someone you had entrusted with your faith, your time, your affection, and who one day simply let go, failed you, hurt you, or left without explanation. And you were left with 1,000 questions, with the betrayal pulsing inside, with a mix of sadness, anger, and emptiness no one else seems to understand. Because when the wound comes from someone close, it doesn't hurt the same. It hurts more. It hurts more because you didn't see it coming, because you would have never done the same, because it hurts to be let down. But it hurts even more to have trusted. You're not exaggerating. You're not weak. You're not foolish for having believed. You're human, and every human being needs connection, trust, a sense of belonging. That's why when someone you trusted fails you, it's not just the bond that breaks. Your identity is shaken too, your certainties, your inner security. You ask yourself, how did I not see this coming? How could I be so naive? Was I the problem? And so someone else's disappointment turns into self-punishment, into doubt, guilt, and buried resentment, and you start to close off, to distrust, to build walls. If it happened once, it can happen again. Better not to give anything, better to trust no one. But that too slowly kills you inside, because deep down, you don't want to live like that. You don't want to become cold. You don't want to carry resentment. You just want to understand how to heal, how to trust again without fear, how to protect your peace without turning to stone. And that's where Stoic philosophy has something profound to offer you. Marcus Aurelius, betrayed by friends, by blood, who still wrote every day to remind himself that the world should not change his virtue. Epictetus, who understood that anything beyond your control, including the actions of others, must not rob you of your peace. Seneca, who knew how to distinguish between the justice we seek and the justice life offers, and yet never became a slave to hatred. The Stoics lived surrounded by deceit, betrayal, manipulation, and loss. But they didn't grow hard because of it. They grew stronger. And that's what you're going to learn today. This is not a message asking you to justify what happened, nor to get over the pain by force. It's a real emotional and reflective guide, so you understand that disappointment doesn't have to define you, that the pain you feel is valid but also transformable, that yes, you can come out of this experience wiser, more conscious, and stronger. Throughout this session, you'll discover why the pain you feel doesn't make you weak, how to stop blaming yourself for what others did, why it's essential to reshape your expectations so you don't fall into the same trap again, how to rebuild your inner world when the outer one falls apart, and how to trust again without giving yourself away blindly. This is a session for those who were once betrayed and still believe it's worth opening their heart again. For those who don't want to become what hurt them, for those who, even with the wound still open, choose to understand instead of destroy. And if you're here, it's because deep down you know there is another way, a wiser way, a freer way, a stoic way to move through disappointment without ceasing to be yourself. Welcome to this session. Here, you won't find revenge, hatred, or coldness. You'll find tools, philosophy, emotional courage, and a community that, like you, was once broken, but chose not to stay broken. Get ready, because what comes next is not just reflection. It's a shift in perspective, a medicine for the soul, and a reconnection with your inner strength. This is where the real journey begins, the journey back to yourself. Before we start, I want you to declare your commitment by commenting, "From today on, my peace doesn't depend on someone else's loyalty." That phrase will be your shield, a reminder that you are not here to keep punishing yourself for the mistakes of others, but to reclaim your dignity, release your resentment, and protect your inner peace. Today, you draw a line in the sand. Without further delay, let's begin. Stoic. Lesson 1. Disappointment reveals your own expectations. No one breaks your heart with their actions, without you first having given them the power to do so. That's one of the most uncomfortable truths we learn when someone we trusted lets us down. Because yes, what they did hurts, but what also hurts is what you expected, what you assumed, what you dreamed it would be, but wasn't. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He didn't write to complain about the world, nor to hold grudges. He wrote to remind himself again and again that what others do is not up to you, but what you expect from them is. And that's where disappointment begins. Not in the actions of others, but in the idea you created of how they should act. No one teaches us this. We're raised on stories of eternal loyalty, unconditional friendships, promises that last forever. We're told that if we give love, we'll receive love. That if we trust, we'll be cared for. And in an ideal world, maybe that's true, but the Stoics didn't live in an ideal world, and neither do you. That's why when Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it. And you have the power to revoke that judgment." He didn't speak from coldness, he spoke from freedom, from the deep understanding that prolonged suffering arises when we believe others owe us something: loyalty, respect, affection, truth. But the reality is that no one is obligated to meet the expectations you've built. Yes, maybe you would have never done what they did, but that only speaks about you, not about them. And here lies the root of this first lesson. The pain doesn't come solely from the betrayal. It comes from everything you believed they were, from the image you created, from the version you expected, from the promises you built, even if they were never actually made. This doesn't mean you deserved what happened. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about opening your eyes. Because as long as you keep expecting people to behave the way you would, you'll keep suffering over their nature instead of accepting it. Epictetus explained it with surgical precision. When someone acts wrongly, don't say, "He hurt me," but rather, "He acted according to his character." And that changes everything. It gives you back your power, because it stops being personal and becomes a clear view of reality. The reality that people aren't always like you. They won't always care about what you care about. They won't always love how you love. And that understanding, though it stings at first, is liberating. Let's bring this into a real-life scene. Think of that person who let you down. Maybe you gave them your best. You were there when no one else was. You shared secrets, dreams, fears. You showed them your most vulnerable side. And one day, without warning, they did something that broke the bond. Now, did they really promise they wouldn't? Did they guarantee they would always behave as you expected? Or were you the one who assumed that because of all you gave, they were obligated not to fail you? That doesn't justify their actions, but it brings you clarity, because there's a difference between being hurt and staying trapped in the pain while waiting for the one who failed you to someday fix it, regret it, understand your worth. But what if they never do? Will you stay there? Will you carry that disappointment like an anchor tied to your chest? The Stoics offered something different. Don't let the world change your essence. Let it awaken you. Let it make you wiser. Let it teach you to see better, not love less. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more pitiful than a soul that, having been wounded, becomes incapable of trusting again." And you're not here to close off. You're here to learn to protect yourself without hardening, to trust with intelligence, to give with awareness, to love without forgetting yourself. Disappointment, when viewed with honesty, is not punishment. It's a mirror, one that reflects your own illusions, your unspoken needs, your inner voids, and by seeing it, you can heal, you can choose better, you can expect less, and live with more peace. So the next time someone fails you, don't just ask, "Why did they do this to me?" Also ask, "What was I expecting that they never actually promised?" And there, in that question, your freedom begins. You're not here to stop trusting, you're here to trust better, with open eyes, with conscious expectations, with your emotional power in your hands, because when you stop demanding that others fulfill your ideas, you free yourself from disappointment and begin to see people not as you wish they were, but as they truly are. That is the foundation of calm, of self-love, and of wise forgiveness. Stoic Lesson 2. Trust is never a guarantee. Trusting is one of the most human acts, and also one of the riskiest. Opening yourself up to someone means becoming vulnerable. It means saying, "Here I am, no masks. I give you access to my inner world, to what I feel, what I think, what hurts me." And though we often offer trust as a gift, in reality, we usually give it as an investment, expecting something in return. We expect loyalty, we expect understanding, we expect the other person to value what we rarely show the world. But what if they don't? What if that person doesn't grasp the weight of what you gave? What if they didn't know how, or didn't care, to protect it? Epictetus, wise among the wise, put it bluntly, "Do not hope for what is not in your control." And while in today's world that might sound cold, it's actually an act of clarity. Because the mistake isn't in trusting, the mistake is in thinking trust is a guarantee, and it's not. No one, no matter how much they love you, can guarantee they'll never let you down. Because people change, they get confused, they make mistakes, they act from their wounds, from their ego, from their chaos, even from their ignorance. So, how do we reconcile this pain with the desire to keep trusting? The answer isn't to stop trusting, it's to trust in a more stoic way. That is, without attachments, without illusions, without hidden demands. When you trust stoically, you don't give away your personal power. You open yourself without surrendering. You give without depending. You become vulnerable without handing the other person the keys to your self-worth. Does that sound hard? It is, but it's also liberating. Let's imagine a real scenario. Suppose you shared a deep secret with someone, something that marked your life. You did it with love, with sincerity, believing the bond was strong. But later, that person betrays you. They reveal it or use it against you. Something breaks, and it hurts. Not just because of what they did, but because you never imagined they would. Because you would never do that. And that's where the pain doubles. First from the act, then from the disillusionment. But then Epictetus reminds you again, what is in our control are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In short, everything of our own doing. What is not in our control are the body, reputation, power, and, most importantly here, the actions of others. Do you see it? The other person's action was never yours. The choice to betray, to lie, to fail you was theirs. It's not in your control, even if it affects you. You didn't cause it, even if it feels like a stab in the chest. And the bravest thing you can do in response is not revenge. It's not shutting yourself off. It's regaining control over yourself. Trust is not a promise, it's a gamble. And like all gambles, it can fail. What can't fail, if you train your stoic mind, is your ability to rise again afterward, to understand that every time someone lets you down, the world doesn't fall apart. A truth is revealed, and you get to decide what to do with it. Will you keep giving power to the one who took it, or will you return to yourself and protect your boundaries with greater clarity? This doesn't mean you should live paranoid. It means you should live awake. Love, friendship, family, every human bond carries a level of risk. But what the Stoics suggest is that this risk should never steal your peace. That you can give without losing yourself. That you can trust, knowing no one and nothing is infallible. And if the day comes when someone you trusted fails you, don't betray yourself. Don't become what you swore never to be. Don't respond in kind. Be you, with more strength, with more clarity, with more self-respect. Because every time you respond with wisdom to betrayal, you're not being naive. You're being strong. You're protecting the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind, your character, your essence. And that, dear listener, is what no one can betray unless you let them. So yes, trust, love, give. But never forget what Marcus Aurelius said. Love mankind, but act as if at any moment they could leave. It's a call to live with openness and also with balance. Because true strength isn't in never trusting. It's in trusting, knowing that even if they fail you, you will still stand tall. Your healing starts within. If today you choose to release the pain of those who failed you and reclaim your center, follow us. This space is a refuge for those rebuilding without resentment, moving forward with wisdom. Don't let disappointment define you. Stoic lesson 3. Accept human nature. There's a quiet question that often arises after a betrayal. How could they do that? And while the answers we seek are often complex, childhood wounds, unresolved fears, ego, envy, Stoicism doesn't get entangled in psychological analysis or emotional guesswork. Seneca's response was clear, direct, even uncomfortable. They did it because they're human. And that changes everything, because while it doesn't justify the act, it does explain it. And within that explanation, we often find relief. One of the most common mental traps after disappointment is the idealization of the human species. We expect people to act logically, coherently, kindly. We expect the other person to have the same level of awareness you had when you trusted, to protect what you protected, to value what you valued. But that's not how it works. Human nature is not perfect, nor is it predictable, nor is it always fair. Some people hurt without meaning to. Others do it with full intent. Some fail out of weakness, others out of sheer indifference. But all of them, absolutely all, are human, and humans fail. Even you, even me. To remember that doesn't make us cynical, it makes us realistic. Stoicism doesn't call you to mistrust everyone, but to live without excessive illusions. To acknowledge that within every human being lives both virtue and fragility, both the potential to care and the capacity to harm. Epictetus said it with unshakable clarity. If someone harms you, do not be angry. Simply say, "That's life." He wasn't speaking from resignation. He was speaking from emotional sovereignty. Because those who expect perfection suffer. But those who accept human condition are free. Picture for a moment that every person is like a clay cup. Some are well-formed, others cracked. Some hold pure water, others muddy water. And you, in your good faith, expect to drink clarity. But if the cup is dirty, whose fault is it? The clay's, the one who made it, or yours, for expecting something that cup was never capable of giving? Seneca might have put it like this: it's not the fire's fault if it burns you. It's your responsibility to remember that fire burns. And that doesn't mean you'll stop approaching fire, but you'll do it with awareness, with care, with boundaries. Accepting human nature doesn't mean becoming cold. It means understanding there are real limits to what others can offer. That not everyone has your sensitivity, that not everyone values what you value, and that expecting them to only leads to suffering. This lesson is hard because it confronts our wounds, because it shows us that the problem isn't always that others fail us, but that you expected something they couldn't give. That hurts, because it forces you to stop blaming others and start looking inward. From what need did you trust so deeply? From what void did you overgive? From what illusion did you refuse to see the signs? Stoic wisdom doesn't punish these questions. It welcomes them, because within that painful reflection, a different kind of peace is born. The peace that comes from knowing you can learn, you can evolve, you can keep trusting, but with your feet on the ground. You don't need to harden, you just need to awaken. Accepting that humans are full of contradictions doesn't kill love, friendship, or connection. It strengthens them, because now you'll love not from blindness, but from clarity. You'll no longer idealize. You'll observe. You'll no longer suffer because someone acted as they are. You'll suffer less because you won't expect them to act as you wish. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will meet a busybody, an ungrateful man, an insolent man, a deceitful man, an envious man. All of these things happen to people by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. It's not pessimism, it's preparation. It's a way to begin the day knowing that the world doesn't revolve around your values. And that doesn't mean you have to lose them. Accepting human nature is one of the most powerful keys to freeing yourself from chronic disappointment, because you'll no longer walk through life expecting angels at every corner, and at the same time, you'll know how to spot those who are truly worth your trust. Because the problem is not that people fail, it's that you ignore their humanity while expecting perfection. And when that changes, everything changes. You can trust with boundaries, you can love with clarity, you can connect with greater wisdom, and most importantly, you can forgive without justifying, let go without forgetting, remember without resenting, because in the end, accepting what we are is the most mature way to begin healing. Stoic Lesson 4. Someone else's failure does not define your worth. One of the deepest wounds disappointment leaves behind isn't what the other person did. It's what you start to believe about yourself after they fail you. Because when someone you trust hurts you, you don't just feel the pain of betrayal. You feel shame, guilt, humiliation. You begin asking yourself questions you should never have to ask. Was I too naive? What did I do wrong to deserve this? Maybe I'm not worth as much as I thought. And that is the true poison of disappointment, not the act itself, but what you start to think about yourself because of it. This is where Stoicism offers you a powerful shield. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What others do reflects their character, not yours." That phrase is more than a quote. It's a protective wall around your dignity. Because when someone acts with disloyalty, selfishness, or cruelty, it doesn't mean you're weak, naive, or foolish. It means that person chose to act poorly, and you were simply the one who was present to see their true face. Epictetus was even more direct. You're not hurt by what others do, but by your interpretation of their actions. This doesn't mean you should excuse the inexcusable. It means you can protect yourself emotionally by refusing to interpret their betrayal as a reflection of your value. Picture for a moment that you're looking into a mirror. The mirror cracks and your reflection becomes distorted. Do you blame yourself for not having a perfect face? Do you tell yourself you're worthless because the image you see is flawed? That would be absurd, right? And yet, that's exactly what you do when you allow someone else's actions to define your self-worth. You're seeing yourself through a broken mirror, and no, you're not broken. The mirror is. Disappointment hurts, of course it does, but it doesn't have to destroy your identity, because you are worth the same before and after someone failed you. Your capacity to love, to trust, to give of yourself, it's still there. Don't lose it because someone didn't know how to value it. Stoicism teaches something powerful. You don't need others to validate your worth. Your dignity doesn't depend on their behavior. You can look at yourself in the mirror with your head held high and say, I was loyal, I was honest, I was brave enough to trust. And if someone failed, that was their failure, not yours. Seneca warned about this too. The wise man is not wounded by the acts of others because he does not place his value in their hands. And that's the key. Do not place your worth in anyone else's hands. Sometimes the betrayal of someone close acts like a magnifying glass. It amplifies your insecurities, past wounds, your deepest fears, but that magnifying glass does not tell the truth. It only distorts what was already there, and you have the power to put it down, to look at yourself again with clear eyes, to remember that your value doesn't depend on who failed you. It depends on how you choose to heal. One person failed you, not the universe, not your essence, not your future. The fact that they didn't know how to value you doesn't mean you lack value. It just means there are still people who don't know gold when it's right in front of them. And that says everything about their blindness, not your brilliance. So today, repeat this like a Stoic mantra. I am not what others did to me. I am what I choose to become after what they did. That's real power, not allowing a wound to dictate your path, not letting a betrayal destroy your self-esteem, not giving someone else's behavior the right to steal your self-respect, because you can come out of that disappointment wiser, stronger, more dignified, and best of all, without resentment, only with the calm of someone who has understood that true worth is never up for debate. It is held, it is defended, it is honored. Today, stop carrying the guilt for something that was never your responsibility. Let go of the need to understand the incomprehensible. Let go of the need for an apology. Let go of the need for your pain to be recognized. And recognize the most important thing, that you are still you, whole, worthy, capable of trusting, loving, rebuilding. Because who you are was never defined by what someone else did. Stoic Lesson 5. Turn disappointment into learning. There are moments in life when the soul contracts, not because of a physical wound, nor due to a material loss, but from something deeper, the silent betrayal of someone you believed in. Sometimes it's a friend who disappears when you need them most. Sometimes it's a family member who wounds you with words you'll never forget. Sometimes it's a partner who promised to stay, but ended up being the cause of your deepest heartbreak. And there you are, with your heart in pieces, asking yourself, why? What did I do wrong? How did I not see this coming? Disappointment hurts because it disrupts your inner order, because it breaks the bridge between what you believed about someone and what they actually did. And in that abyss, it's easy to fall into resentment, guilt, the thirst for revenge, or hopelessness. But if there is one philosophy that can rescue you from that abyss, it is Stoicism. Epictetus was a slave. He lived in bondage, betrayed, stripped of his most basic freedom, and still he became one of the freest minds in history. How? Because he learned that inevitable suffering can become wisdom if you learn to look at it with the eyes of the soul. And you can do it too. This isn't about denying pain or romanticizing betrayal. It's about using the wound as a mirror, as an uncomfortable teacher you never asked for. But who came to teach you something you needed to learn? What is this disappointment showing you? Maybe that you gave too much without paying attention. Maybe that you idealized someone who never showed you who they really were. Maybe that you confused affection with loyalty. Or maybe that you need to learn to hold yourself up, even when others let you down. The Stoics didn't see setbacks as punishments, but as opportunities for inner training. Every disappointment is a workout for your soul, a chance to become stronger, wiser, more aware. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly in his Meditations. If you are hurt by someone's actions, don't stoop to their level. Ask yourself what you can learn and continue your path with dignity. Because that's what strong souls do. They don't get stuck in the pain received. They observe it, they process it, and then they transform it. And how do you transform it? First, by letting go of resentment. Because as long as your attention is focused on what was done to you, you won't be able to see what you can build from it. Second, by owning your part. Maybe you trusted blindly. Maybe you ignored red flags. Maybe you needed someone to be perfect so badly that you refuse to see reality. This isn't to blame yourself, it's to grow. And growth hurts, but it frees you. Third, by asking yourself, what kind of person do I want to be after this wound? Someone who lives with anger and distrust, or someone who learned and now walks with more clarity and fewer illusions? Because Stoicism doesn't ask you to harden, it asks you to strengthen, not to shut down, but to know yourself, to let every disappointment become a signal that refines your boundaries, your choices, your connections. And there's more. Disappointment also reveals what you value. If it hurt that someone lied, it's because you value truth. If it hurt that someone left, it's because you know how to stay. If it hurt that someone betrayed you, it's because you understand loyalty. So instead of getting lost in what the other person failed to give, Reconnect with what you are capable of offering. Do not lose your virtue because someone else lacked theirs. Seneca said, "The wise man is not embittered by what happens to him. He observes, he adapts, he learns, and remains wise." Don't let a disappointment turn you into someone you are not. Don't allow today's pain to steal your ability to trust tomorrow. Just learn. Learn what you needed to see. Learn how you chose. Learn how to set boundaries. Learn how to see more clearly. Learn not to give your soul to those who haven't earned it. And most of all, learn to forgive yourself for not knowing it sooner. There is no nobler mistake than the one that becomes virtue. And there is no more authentic wisdom than the kind that rises from a wounded heart that refuses to give up. Because this wound is not your ending, it is your next lesson. And if you choose to see it with Stoic eyes, you'll discover that every disappointment, no matter how bitter, can become the beginning of your true inner awakening. Stoic Lesson 6. Don't live in resentment. The betrayal of someone close is an invisible wound. It leaves no marks on your skin, but it pierces your soul with silent violence. Someone you trusted, maybe a friend, a partner, a family member, let you down. And from that moment on, something inside you changed. That person may have moved on with their life, but you stayed in the same place, replaying over and over what happened, the words they said, the promises they made, the things they did or failed to do, and without realizing it, you began to build a dark altar, the altar of resentment. Resentment doesn't begin as hatred. It begins as pain, as a persistent echo reminding you this shouldn't have happened. And it's true, but it did. And the most dangerous part isn't what they did. It's what that pain does to you when you don't let it go. The Stoics understood the destructive power of resentment. Seneca said, "The greatest punishment for someone who has wronged us is not our hatred, but our indifference." Because hatred is a chain. It means continuing to orbit emotionally around someone who's no longer present. It means allowing someone else's actions to keep ruling your thoughts, your peace, your present. And the worst part is that resentment wears the disguise of justice. You believe that if you let it go, it's like saying what happened was okay. As if forgiving or releasing it means giving up. But it's the exact opposite. Letting go of resentment is not weakness, it's sovereignty. What does resentment give you? Peace, closure, wisdom, number. It only gives you fatigue, bitterness, and a hardened heart. Because every time you relive what happened, you reopen the wound. And every time you expect that person to understand, to regret it, to make amends, you chain yourself even more. Epictetus taught that true power lies in knowing what depends on you and what does not. And do you know what doesn't depend on you? The other person's regret, the apology that never came, the explanation you deserved but may never hear. That's not under your control. But what is under your control? What you do with that wound, whether you turn it into a prison or a doorway. This isn't about justifying the unjustifiable. It's not about denying the pain or pretending it never happened. It's about recognizing that your life is worth more than an eternal emotional vendetta. It's about rescuing your dignity from the depths of bitterness. Sometimes we believe that if we let go of resentment, the other person gets away with it. But the truth is, this isn't about them. It's about you, your soul, your energy, your emotional health. Every minute you spend feeding resentment is a minute that person still has power over you. But when you let go, even if there was no apology, even if nothing was ever made right, and you say, "I do this not for you, but for me," you reclaim the power you once lost. Marcus Aurelius practiced this with silent mastery. Surrounded by political betrayals, hidden enemies, and friends turned rivals, he never allowed hatred to rule him. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like them." A simple phrase, powerful, stoic, and that's what you can do today. Don't wait for everything to be resolved to let go of the grudge. Don't wait for the other person to change to free your soul. Let go, not out of weakness, but out of self-love. Let go, not to forget what happened, but so it doesn't keep destroying you. Let go, because your life should not be governed by a moment from the past. Practicing this lesson is not easy. There will be days when the wound burns again, days when the memory tempts you to hate. But on those days, breathe. Remind yourself of this. You don't live there anymore. You are no longer that broken person. You are someone who chose to heal. And healing means deciding that the past has no right to ruin your present. Dear listener, if you're carrying resentments that keep you from moving forward, this is the sign you've been waiting for, not because it's easy, but because it's just for you, just for your future. Let the pain teach you, but don't let it chain you. Let betrayal make you stronger, but don't let it make you bitter. And let the love you once gave, even if it was betrayed, open your heart not less, but wiser, stronger, freer, because only the one who lets go can learn to fly again. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to heal the wounds of betrayal and reclaim your inner peace. Follow us and comment, "I choose to let go of the pain," to affirm your commitment to a freer, more conscious life. This is only the first step toward a way of living where disappointment no longer holds power over you. By lesson 9, you'll uncover a powerful revelation that could transform how you connect with others and protect your emotional well-being. Let's keep going. Stoic lesson 7. Stop idealizing. Start seeing clearly. Idealizing those we love is a mistake as common as it is painful. We attribute virtues they may not possess, place them on pedestals they never asked for, and expect from them a perfection no human being can uphold. And when they fail us, it's not just what they did that hurts, it's the collapse of the ideal image we built of them. Disappointment often stems less from the other's actions and more from the brutal collision between our fantasy and reality. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I will encounter intrusion, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" He didn't say this out of pessimism, but out of clarity, out of the need to see the world as it is, not as we wish it were. Idealization is the enemy of serenity. It makes us vulnerable, blinds us, and robs us of the ability to see with wisdom. When you idealize someone, you're not truly loving them. You're loving a version you created, a reflection of your own longings, your own unmet needs projected onto another person. That perfect image is a construct, not a human being, and when it shatters, you're left disoriented. Stoic philosophy invites us to replace idealization with observation. To observe is not to judge. To observe is to see with sharpness, without embellishments, without magical expectations. It is to accept human complexity, to recognize that everyone, even those we love, is capable of error, contradiction, and shadow, not to hate them, but to relate to them from a more honest, healthier place. Think of a recent disappointment. How much of that pain came from what the person actually did, and how much came from what you expected of them? Sometimes it's not what happened that hurts the most. It's that they weren't who you imagined, that they didn't live up to the idealized version you built around them. But that's not their fault. That's your lesson. Epictetus said, "Don't expect people to act the way you want. Accept them as they are." That acceptance is not resignation. It's freedom. Because when you stop idealizing, you stop suffering avoidable disappointments. You stop building glass castles that shatter with the first mistake. And you start building more real, more grounded, more compassionate relationships. Stoicism does not ask you to mistrust everyone. It asks you to open your eyes, to connect from clarity, not illusion, to acknowledge that people are not here to fill your emptiness or meet your expectations. They are here to be who they are, and you are here to choose how to engage with them, from your center, without emotionally depending on their perfection. Idealizing is also a form of avoidance, avoiding what we don't want to face, pretending things are okay when they're not, clinging to an image because we're afraid of what lies behind it. But living with closed eyes is living in a lie, and every lie, sooner or later, collapses. Clarity, on the other hand, even if it hurts, frees. Seneca said, "The wise are prepared for anything that may come." And that includes the reality that even the people closest to you can fail. Not because they're bad, but because they're human. When you relate from that truth, you no longer break down with every misstep. You become firmer, more fair, more compassionate, because you know you've failed too. And just as you don't want to be idealized, you must not idealize others either. Look at people the way you'd look at the sea, beautiful but unpredictable, capable of calm and of storm, capable of embracing and of overwhelming. Don't expect the sea to always be gentle. Learn to navigate it, learn to observe. And in that observation you'll find a peace deeper than any fantasy. When someone you trusted lets you down, ask yourself honestly, did I truly know them? Or did I only know the version I constructed in my mind? The answer may sting, but it can also set you free, because only when you stop idealizing can you begin to see, and only when you see clearly can you love truthfully. That's the Stoic gaze. That's the gaze that returns you to calm. Stoic Lesson 8. Disappointment is also liberation. Sometimes betrayal doesn't arrive with screams. It comes in the form of silence, of unanswered messages, of repeated excuses, of a broken promise that, although small, forever changes the way you look at someone. When a person you trusted lets you down, there's a pain that doesn't scream, but burns. It burns slowly, inside, because it's not just about what they did. It hurts that it was that person. The one you swore was different. And yet here you are, with a cracked soul and a heart trying to understand how you went from shared laughter to the abyss of disappointment. The Stoics never minimized that pain. They looked at it with courage. Epictetus taught that when someone you trust disappoints you, they're actually doing you a favor. They're revealing something you needed to know. And though that truth may be painful, it is also liberating. Because disappointment, if you know how to read it, is a signal, a warning, a revelation that breaks illusion and shows you reality without masks. For a long time you believed in that person. You trusted. You opened your inner doors. You gave your best. But now reality hits hard. That person was not who you thought they were. And yes, that hurts. But it's also a hidden blessing. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not worry if others don't behave as you expected. You were never promised that." It's a simple phrase, but a powerful one. No one promised you that people would always treat you well. No one guaranteed that human bonds would always be fair or coherent. Disappointment is not a flaw in the universe. It's part of the human experience. And every time someone breaks your trust, you're not losing something. You're gaining clarity. That's what the Stoics valued. Clarity over fantasy, truth over attachment, character over comfort. Imagine walking for years with a blindfold, guided by someone you believed was leading you safely. One day, that person pushes you. At first you curse the blow, you curse the fall, you curse the one who caused it. But when you take off the blindfold, you realize something terrifying and liberating. You were never on the right path. And if you hadn't fallen, you never would have seen it. That is the purpose of disappointment. It pushes you to open your eyes, to remove the blindfold, to see those around you with new eyes, and though that may bring grief, it also brings awakening. Seneca said, "When sadness settles in, it's a sign that we are still alive, that we feel, that we are human, but don't let yourself stay there forever." This is not about becoming cold, cynical, or distrustful. It's about learning, about integrating the lesson, about understanding that the person who failed you simply revealed their level of consciousness, not your worth. And in doing so, they gave you a difficult gift to accept. They freed you from continuing to expect something that was never going to arrive. Maybe that friendship was no longer mutual. Maybe that relationship was sustained only by your desire. Maybe that connection was draining you more than it was nourishing you. Now you know. Now you can choose differently. Disappointment can be a final chapter, or a new beginning. Stoicism does not ask you to deny your pain. It invites you to transform it, to stop seeing it as punishment and start seeing it as liberation, because what hurts today might be what saves you tomorrow. What breaks you now might be the wound through which the light enters. What you feel as betrayal today might be the beginning of your greatest freedom. That person who failed you no longer has power over you. You decide what to do with what happened. You can drag that pain around like a chain, or you can use it as a key, the key that opens the door to a new way of connecting, more conscious, more resilient, more you. Remember this: disappointment does not make you weak, it makes you wiser. And if today you choose to learn instead of closing your heart, then the wound wasn't in vain. It was the beginning of your rebirth. So let it be. Stoic Lesson 9. Choose your reaction wisely. When someone you trust fails you, it's natural for an inner storm to erupt. You feel betrayed, confused, wounded. The mind races for answers, and the heart burns with emotions you often can't even name. The disappointment of someone close is one of the hardest wounds to process. It's not just what they did that hurts. It's what you thought they'd never do. It's the broken trust, the shattered image you had of them, the expectation reduced to pieces. And it is in that vulnerable moment, when you're about to react by yelling, punishing, seeking revenge, or disappearing, that's when you hold the greatest power. Because the only thing truly under your control, as Epictetus taught, is how you choose to respond. Not what was done to you, not what you lost, but what you do with that pain. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor surrounded by betrayal and power games, knew this better than anyone. In his meditations he wrote, "The one who commits injustice harms himself. The one who suffers injustice has the power not to be stained by the same anger." Anger, revenge, hatred, they feel like legitimate responses. They make us feel strong for a moment, but what we often don't realize is that each of those responses traps us too. They trap us in the cycle of pain, turning us into a reflection of what hurt us. To respond wisely is not weakness. It's a higher form of strength. It's looking at your wound without turning it into a weapon. Imagine this. You trust a friend. You share your struggles, your secrets, your dreams, and one day you find out they've betrayed you. Maybe they spoke behind your back. Maybe they took advantage of your generosity. Maybe they left you alone when you needed them most. The wound is real, but now comes the hardest part. What will you do with that wound? The Stoic path doesn't tell you it shouldn't hurt. It tells you pain is inevitable. But prolonged suffering is optional, and above all, it reminds you that your virtue, your integrity, your peace, your dignity should not fall with your disappointment. Responding with wisdom means taking a step back before reacting. It means asking yourself, does this emotion I'm feeling truly represent me? Will this reaction bring me closer or further from the person I want to be? Am I acting with clarity, or am I being swept up by the storm of my emotions? The Stoic mind trains these questions constantly, not to repress feelings, but to govern them. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but the interpretations we give to them. That includes what others do to us. A betrayal, no matter how painful, has no power over you, unless you give it power." And yes, that may sound cold or detached, but it's not about suppressing your humanity. It's about elevating it. Instead of exploding in revenge, you choose to speak calmly or remain silent. Instead of wishing ill on the other person, you choose to walk away with respect. Instead of drowning in drama, you return to your center, not for them, for you. Because you won't let someone else's lack of virtue steal your own. It's also important to remember that responding with wisdom doesn't mean forced reconciliation. You can choose to walk away, to set firm boundaries, to close a chapter. All of that is wise if it comes from awareness, not impulse. True wisdom doesn't always look grand. Sometimes it's invisible. It's the message you didn't reply to, the argument you didn't fuel, the insult you didn't return, the quiet act of dignity no one saw but you. And over time, those kinds of responses build something no betrayal can destroy: your inner peace. Because every time you choose your reaction with wisdom, you're affirming that you are not what was done to you. You are what you choose to do with it. So the next time someone you trust lets you down, remember this: your first impulse may be to yell, cut ties, or curse. But your true freedom begins when you give yourself space to breathe and choose to act from your center, not from your wound. The world needs more people who respond with strength without losing their humanity. More people who use pain as a lesson, not a weapon. That is the Stoic teaching. You can't control others, but you can control who you become, even after disappointment. And that, dear human, no matter how broken, angry, or sad you feel today, that is your greatest power. Because when you choose wisely, the one who wins is always you. Stoic Lesson 10. Strengthen your emotional autonomy. There's a scene many of us have lived, though each one remembers it in their own way. You feel devastated. The betrayal of someone close didn't just break your trust, it shattered a part of you. You walk around the house not knowing who to call. You repeat phrases like, "How did I not see this coming? Why did they do this to me?" Or "What did I do wrong?" You search for answers, but all you find is a silence that hurts. And then you understand you don't have anyone to hold you the way you've held others. You've given so much, supported so many, that you forgot to learn how to support yourself. That's the exact moment when this lesson begins. Because beyond the disappointment, beyond the anger, beyond the pain of having trusted someone who didn't deserve it, lies an even greater teaching. Your peace cannot depend on anyone but you. That is emotional autonomy. And in this 10th lesson, we're going to build it together. To the Stoics, emotional dependency on others was not just dangerous, it was absurd. Because everything external is unstable. Other people's will, their actions, their presence, their honesty. None of that is under your control. So, if you place your inner balance in someone else's hands, you become a hostage to the unpredictable. Epictetus said it bluntly: when you let someone else determine your joy or your misery, you hand over the command of your soul. And how many times have you done just that? How many times have you placed your happiness in a phone call that never came? Your peace in an apology that was never offered? Your emotional stability in someone who didn't even know how to take care of their own? Those people didn't just fail you. They failed the part of you that believed you couldn't be okay without them. But that ends today. Emotional autonomy is not coldness. It's not insensitivity. It's not turning to stone. It's learning to be your own refuge. It's knowing that you can live, feel, and heal without needing someone else's regret, without seeking validation from the one who hurt you, without waiting for a repair that may never come. Difficult? Yes. Impossible? Number. The first step is taking ownership of your emotions. What you feel is yours. Your disappointment is yours. Your anger is yours. Your sadness is yours. And by recognizing this, you reclaim your power. Because only what you own can you transform. The second step is to cleanse your mind of the narratives that chain you. Stop repeating that you can't live without that person. Stop believing your worth depends on how others treated you. Stop replaying the betrayal over and over in your mind. Every time you do, you tear away a piece of your soul. The third step is to reconnect with yourself. What dreams did you postpone while sustaining relationships that only drained you? What parts of yourself did you abandon to try and fit into someone else's world? What things will you never allow again? Write down those answers. Speak them to yourself. Remember them, because that's where your new emotional foundation begins, in the honest recognition of what you need, what you deserve, and what you'll never tolerate again. The Stoics knew that there's no greater freedom than being the master of yourself. That true strength isn't about resisting pain. It's about rebuilding from it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul is strengthened in solitude when it stops expecting from others and begins to rely on itself." And that's the goal of this lesson. that you don't need anyone to be at peace with yourself, that if someone fails you, you don't collapse. You return to yourself with more clarity and resolve, that if something breaks on the outside, your inner core stays intact, because in the end, no one can abandon you more than you can, and when you learn not to do that, nothing can truly break you. Dear listener, may this disappointment not turn you into someone distrustful, cold, or indifferent. Let it make you whole, someone who chooses themselves, someone who takes care of themselves, someone who protects themselves, not to shut out love, but to stop confusing love with dependence, devotion with sacrifice, trust with blindness. And when you succeed, when you realize that you can stand tall on your own, with your head held high and your soul intact, you'll understand that betrayal, however painful, came to reveal something far greater, that you don't need anyone to return to being yourself, and that true freedom begins the day you decide to stop breaking for those who never knew how to hold you. Sometimes the deepest wound isn't the one that bleeds, but the one that disappoints. A betrayal, a broken promise, a cold look from someone who once called you important. No one prepares us for that pain, for that moment when the heart breaks without making a sound, and all that remains is a question with no answer. Why did they let me down? But maybe that's not the question you need. Maybe the real question is, and now, what do I do with this pain? That's where Stoicism comes in. Not as a cold doctrine, but as a warm and honest refuge. A philosophy that doesn't ask you to stop feeling, but to learn to direct your emotions with wisdom. One that doesn't require you to forget the harm, but does ask you not to let it define you, because every disappointment, as painful as it may be, is also a mirror, a threshold, an opportunity to return to yourself. Who are you when someone fails you? Are you just a bundle of wounds, or are you someone capable of transforming pain into strength? The Stoics understood it better than anyone. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control the meaning you give to them. You can't avoid being let down, but you can choose what happens afterward. You can let it break you, or let it shape you. This session didn't offer magic formulas. It offered you questions, reflections, and perhaps a small light in the midst of the pain. Because if you're here, if you listened until the end, it's because there's a force inside you that you've yet to fully uncover, a force that doesn't need revenge or hatred, but serenity, presence, dignity. You'll face many disappointments, but you're not obligated to live through them as a victim. You can live them as a wise soul, as someone who chooses to open instead of shut down, as someone who, instead of hardening, chooses to sharpen their discernment, as someone who realizes that trusting wasn't the mistake, but idealizing was. And now you know it's not about not trusting again. It's about trusting with more wisdom, with more self-love, with more emotional autonomy. Peace doesn't come from everything going well. Peace is born when, even as everything falls apart, you know you can hold yourself together from within. When you can look at the one who failed you, and instead of wishing them harm, you simply keep walking. No hatred, no drama, no noise. That, dear human, is the true victory. If this session touched you, if something in these words helped you see your pain in a new light, I invite you to become part of this community. Here, we cultivate more than knowledge. We cultivate resilience, self-love, emotional strength. Subscribe if this space feels like home. Leave your mark. Share your story. Because here, together, we learn to live with more courage and with more calm. And if today you close this episode with a heart that feels even slightly lighter, then let it be so. Not because the pain has vanished, but because you are no longer the same. Now you are wiser. And that is already a form of healing. I'm eager to hear your stories of overcoming this kind of pain. Share your victories, your struggles, and your experiences in the comments. If you don't know what to say, simply write, "Starting today, I release disappointment and reclaim my peace." It shows you've completed our session, and don't forget to follow us if this content resonates with you and your values for living wisely. Your voice matters here. Every reflection strengthens and elevates this community, reflecting the true worth of each person and contributing to our shared Stoic identity. The most supported comment will be pinned as the banner of our Stoic-minded community. A community that doesn't run from pain, but faces it with courage, with wisdom, with honor. Joining this Stoic space is breaking the chains that hold you back and building an inner fortress that no one can tear down. Follow us if you never want to miss another Stoic reflection. Remember, every decision shapes your character. In the pinned comment, you'll find 2 paths, and each one exists for a reason. Some decisions may seem small, but they change everything. If something inside you shifted while listening to this, don't ignore it. Subscribing isn't just a click, it's a decision to never live unconsciously again, to walk with awareness, with courage, with purpose. And if you choose to support this space as a member, you're not just giving, you're planting seeds. Thanks to you, this flame stays lit. Your presence allows us to keep sharing wisdom in a noisy world, building a community of awakened, grounded, and free souls. We'll meet again in our next session of Stoicism for Winners, where we'll continue exploring the treasures of Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. Now, take the opportunity to deepen your understanding of Stoicism with our recommended sessions. Until we meet again, remember, you are the sole owner of your perception, the creator of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. This is the legacy of Stoicism, the art of being invincible.